The importance and value of bad ideas. A long time ago, I lived in a small town about 20 miles away from the Mexican border. There were Border Patrol everywhere. They sat on the hills in their little green and white SUVs. About every third car on the road was Border Patrol. There's an army of them. And their helicopters frequently flew overhead. And down in this little town, so few people that you pretty much knew everyone there, there was a posh vegan retreat. People go there to meditate, juice fast, enjoy the spa, relax, get away. It's in the middle of, well, not quite the middle of nowhere, but not close to anything big. It's the kind of place where at night you could look up and see the stars. Beautiful. And I ended up working there. And while I was working there, I'd been there for a little bit of time. And while I was working there, they had an incident where there was a gate that blocked off this hillside, and someone had gotten through the gate at night in some kind of a 4x4. Some kids. And they'd driven up to the top of the hill. Wasn't a lot up there. There were a few buildings, but nothing big. And they had driven all around for some reason, shooting off guns, just popping off guns at the sky. And then they drove back down and left. But the next morning at this retreat, it was quite the conversation piece. And everyone was talking about it. The guests who could hear the gunfire going off in the little casitas they were staying at. The staff was shocked that, this had happened. And there was an emergency meeting called. And the topic of this emergency meeting was what to do about this incident. Now, I had been there, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, and I'd never seen anything like it. And if anything, it was a pretty quiet and safe place because of the Border Patrol being everywhere around. So this was unusual. And one of the suggestions on how we should deal with it was that two of the staff members, who themselves owned guns, firearms, should carry them at work. Now, I was pretty horrified by this suggestion. First off, the kids who had joyridden around and shot off guns, what would a gun have done to solve that problem? Were they planning on shooting the kids? And even when it occurred, there weren't any staff members there anyway. It was late at night. So even if people had come armed, it wouldn't have had anything to do with that situation. And even if there was some other situation, a thief or drug runners, it's hard to imagine how these two people who are not security guards, not trained in these weapons, simply own them personally, how that situation is going to end well. It's a lot easier to imagine how it would not end well. That if in fact someone were to come to this posh vegan retreat with a gun, that pulling a gun yourself probably isn't the answer. Especially given that our proximity to the the police station, the border patrol, they weren't far away. So a call to 911 would have brought out an army in about 3 minutes. So I voiced this concern that all that was really happening is that we were bringing guns into the workplace, and that would inherently make everything about the workplace more dangerous. I mean, who knows what could happen to these weapons, but it's hard to imagine a good use of them, and easy to imagine a bad use of them. But my concerns were completely shot down and not shared by anyone there. And the majority in this meeting felt that that was exactly the solution, and so it was agreed upon. And I was shocked. I had a sense of dread. Two of my coworkers now would be carrying guns. And I know there's this Second Amendment thing about good guys with a gun. But this is not the place I really expected to run into that situation. This is not, conservative rally. This is the exact opposite. Very peaceful, middle of nowhere spa. All of it was just a really bad decision and a very poor reaction to what had actually occurred. So I quit. I gave my notice. I said, there's no way I'm going to stay here if there are people who are armed. And out of a bit of irony to the situation, the two men who were armed ended up being in a love triangle where one of them was with the other's wife, so she cheated on him with the other one. And so the two people who had a gun at the workplace actually had a reason to shoot each other, but they didn't. And actually nothing bad happened. They never used those guns. They never had the opportunity to. They were never an issue, and no one was hurt. So my fears were overblown. I still think it was a bad decision. I still think that they were putting people at risk and that it wouldn't solve the problem and make the problem worse, but there wasn't anything I could do about it except what I really did do, which is quit. I struggled with this scenario. And in the end, what came of it was that that place was not a good place for me. That despite its peaceful nature, it wasn't doing me any favors. It was holding me back. And quitting was the best thing I could have done and improved my life dramatically. The bad decision that this place took was my impetus to change my life.